Hi, I'm Lexi and I blog at lextoneclectic.com where I share about our homeschool. So welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about one of my other videos. So a few months ago my husband had a fun idea for our homeschool. He said that I should make a time lapse of our homeschool day. And so he helped me set up my phone on a tripod up in the corner of our room, and we made a time lapse of what my homeschool morning looked like. Just a typical, I just circled a day on the calendar in the middle of a week and said, I'm gonna video this day. And we're just gonna see what it looks like and see what happens. And my husband was really interested to get kind of an inside look into our homeschool day and see what really happens. So we set up our camera and I hit play and we came in to our homeschool room and started our morning. And the video, we have watched it so many times. My kids have loved watching themselves run around the room in fast motion and show as they've been sitting at their table and listening to me read, and it's been really fun to look at. And my husband really enjoyed being able to get that inside look into our day because it is really busy and really crazy. And you know, every homeschool day looks different, so it's really fun to see how the day looks. So I posted that video on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, and I shared it on social media, and it was shared and shared and shared and reshared, and soon it had been viewed thousands of times. So that was a little bit crazy. Well, I started looking at the different people who had shared my video and reading what they said about it, and then I started reading the comments. And let me tell you, that was a huge, huge mistake. I should have just left it alone and been excited that my video was viewed many times, because some of the comments were so very discouraging. I felt like people were attacking me for how I choose to homeschool. So let me go back and explain more about the video. We start our homeschool day at 6 a.m. and so I did put a few times on the video to kind of show how long our day was lasting. So I posted, 6 a.m. we start our day, and 8 o'clock is breakfast, and 11 o'clock is group school, or whatever. I posted a few time breakdowns in the video, and a lot of people were commenting on that. And I also had a lot of comments about the amount of sitting that my children do, or the amount of schoolwork, or that my homeschool looks too much like traditional school, or whatever, and that they would never spend that amount of time in their homeschool room. Their day was not as structured as mine. They couldn't believe how I was homeschooling because it was just like what a public school teacher did. So I wanted to explain and maybe refute a couple of those comments because I don't agree, and I don't feel a lot of them were necessary, and so I wanted to just explain about my day. Anyway, we do start at 6 a.m., which seems really crazy to a lot of people, but we started that because of my husband's work schedule. He leaves the house at 6, so he's up before 6 a.m., and then he comes home early, sometimes at 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And so I wanted our day to be done when he got home. I wanted us to be done long before he got home, and my kids have time to play and go outside when the day was nice, and then be able to spend time with him in the evening. And I was up anyway, and often his leaving would wake up a child or two, and so I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna start at 6 a.m. And then it started to work really well because I had some quiet time with my older kids while my little ones were still asleep, because they usually sleep until 7 or 8. And so that gave me a really great window of about 2 hours or maybe an hour and a half to work with my older kids, and we could get a lot of their math and language arts done in the time while my little people were napping. That meant a lot less interruptions and a lot less frustration for me. So I know that starting at 6 a.m. might not work for a lot of families, but it works really, really well for us. And until you understand my reason behind it, it might not make sense. But knowing my husband's work schedule and knowing that I have little ones that sleep in a little bit, it makes a lot of sense for me. Okay, so do my kids sit all day? No. If you watch the video, you'll see that they are bouncing around. They're running in and out of the room. They're standing on chairs. They're rolling on the floor. And what this video does not show is the room next to my homeschool room. I actually have a bounce castle in that room. We have a huge playroom, And during the winter months, we inflate a giant bouncy castle, and my kids, in between their schoolwork, go jump for hours at a time. And so my kids really don't do very much sitting. And so that video only shows one tiny perspective of my day, and it only shows one room in my entire house. So you can't really get the full picture of what my kids are doing when they're not in camera's view. Yes, I do require my kids to sit at times and do some schoolwork with me. I don't think that 30 minutes here and there, or for my older kids an hour at a time of sitting with me, working one-on-one on different subjects is too much to ask. So yes, that's how things work in my homeschool. Okay, and then another comment was about our homeschool room, that no one would spend as much time in their homeschool room. Like, why are my kids not outside? Why are they not doing all kinds of things? Why are we in our room all day? Well, we're not in our room all day. We do spend a lot of time in our homeschool room. We are very blessed in our new house to have a wonderful basement where we have a homeschool room, and then obviously we have the playroom that I mentioned, and then there's another room, a family room with comfy chairs where my kids like to go and sit to read. So we do spend a lot of our day in our homeschool room. We have a giant table where my kids love to sit and color and draw. They do art projects. It's a really great space for doing different projects because they have a lot of room. We also have a lot of floor space. You can kind of see it behind me. You can see part of it is used up with new curriculum for next year. But we have a lot of floor space, and my kids love to just lay out on the floor and look at books or color while I read to them. You can see my little reading chair right there. That's my comfy chair. My kids like to all try to pile in there with me while I read out loud to them. It's a little bit hard to hold a book and a toddler and a 4-year-old and have everyone hanging off the arms of my chair while I read different stories to them. But I wouldn't have it any other way. We do spend a ton of time outside. We live in an area where it can be really cold in winter, and so there are times where we kind of are stuck indoors because of the yucky weather, and that's okay because we have a really bright, cheerful homeschool area where my kids can do a lot of creative projects, and we can do reading. You can see all of the books in the shelves back here. Those are some of my kids' reading books that they like to go through. You can see their notebooks back over here. What you can't see is the wall behind me that has art supplies and science supplies on it. So yes, we might spend part of our day in our homeschool room because it just works really well for us. We like having a focused room for all of our schoolwork. It can be left a mess because no one else sees it. So if they have a project or a science experiment that they're working on, it can sit on the windowsill or somewhere on our table, and it doesn't matter because if company comes over, they don't really come down and see our homeschool room. And so it's just a place, a room in my house that I don't have to worry what it looks like. So that's a little bit about my homeschool day, but I was really disappointed, I think, to read the comments and see how so many other homeschool moms were just trashing my homeschool style. And I thought, I know that the way I do things might not be how they do them, but isn't that the entire point of homeschooling? I homeschool because it's best for my kids, and the way we structure our day, and I have 6 kids, so I do have to have some type of routine or we just don't get anything done. So yes, the way I structure my day might look completely different than the way someone else structures theirs, and that is why homeschooling works. It's because we can create that individualized learning. And it works well for every child because you can do what is best for them and you can do what works for you as the parent. And so if you do all of your homeschool out in your backyard and you're blessed with a beautiful outdoor space, or if you homeschool at the kitchen table or on the couch, or you homeschool only at night, that's great. Do what works for your schedule. But be very careful as a homeschool mom not to comment on someone else's choices or decisions or schedule, because it really got me thinking, homeschooling is really hard. And I found that it can be really lonely at times. And so I think it's really sad when we as homeschool moms can't come together and form a community of support and encouragement, because we're all working toward the same goal of educating our children and cultivating a love of learning in them and being able to learn ourselves. So it would be so much better and more worthwhile if we could just encourage each other. So there's a little bit more about our time lapse. I'll put a link to it in the comments right below. And you can look at it and see for yourself. And if you want to comment, that's great. I may or may not read the comments because I don't know if I want to read them anymore. But I wanted to just explain my day a little bit so that it made more sense to people. They could kind of see my perspective. Maybe it will help them be a little more open-minded in the future. But I just wanted to encourage you to be mindful of the other homeschool moms. Think of ways to encourage them and try not to comment on their style, because chances are they sometimes feel worried that they're doing the wrong thing, or stressed about their homeschool, or completely overwhelmed. And we need to look for ways to encourage each other instead. So hopefully that's given you a little bit better perspective and maybe helped you think about ways that you can encourage other homeschool moms instead of maybe commenting on the crazy things that you think that they're doing, because it really, if they're doing it, it's probably because it works for them, and that's great.